let's go into hypnosis a little bit. We started with one clarification of how hypnosis works, and let's step into another common question many people ask. Do I remember the entire session? And that's a good question. Do you remember the entire session? When a person becomes hypnotized, first they have to have a will to become hypnotized, which means I want to become. So if you see, like on stage, the hypnotist is going to say whoever wants to come on stage and be hypnotized should raise their hands. They don't just call up random people. They need people with the will to be hypnotized in order for them to become hypnotized. If they want to come onto stage, that means they are ready in their mind to be somewhat manipulated. I don't want to use the word manipulated because it's not. It's basically that's a function of the mind. And if you allow yourself into something, you'll be led through it. As the Gemara says, like if you choose a certain path, you'll end up in that path. It's just how it is. It's just the nature of things. So if a person has a will to become hypnotized, for whatever reason they feel like, is it to stop smoking, or is it to break a different addiction, or is it to start thinking a little differently? It doesn't matter what they come for. They want to start understanding how to work on their emotions and moods and how they see the reality. What's gonna happen is you're going to be hypnotized and go through that will and into a train of thought. That's what goes on inside the mind. Inside the mind, there are a whole bunch of trains of thought, and every thought that you go through is something that you're going to be uncovering. You're going to be seeing a certain story come up. That story comes up because you just went in with this will, meaning with this intention. So you had a feeling, you had something that you want to work on, and now what's holding you back? Or why do you want to do this? What does this remind you of? So let's say somebody wants to become rich, we're going to hypnotize him, and he'll go in and he'll say, and the first story that's going to come up once they're hypnotized may be, I remember I was 6 years old, and there was this guy that came into the house. He had this impeccable suit and tie, and he had this briefcase, and he seemed so important to me. And it's just an interesting story that comes up. Just a random person comes in and he wants to work on his success, and somehow there's a story from him being 6, and then we say, okay, now we move on after that story, and somehow there's a story of them being 12 and making their first dollar and feeling so good about it. They go through different times, and then some stories could be more morbid or dreadful when they speak about, oh, I was so impoverished and I didn't have anything when I grew up, and whatever stories, whatever the brain, whatever thoughts lie behind this success are going to come up, and we're going to go through them. We're going to have this conversation in the mind and hear the thoughts, hear the memories, and honestly listen to the conclusions that you've made for yourself. You've made certain conclusions. I could get that, or I can't attain that. It's like you have concluded things in yourself based on situations when you were younger. When a 5-year-old sees that his toy was broken by a neighbor, he's now going to reach a conclusion that nobody could ever touch my toys. Not my neighbors, not my brothers, not my parents, and it's like, and if somebody touches it, they lose it. They get so lost because they reached a conclusion at 5 years old. But now, as they get older and they're 10, they're like, you know what? Sharing is actually a very good thing to do. So I want to, but what about that? Am I not scared about people breaking it? Like, okay, are there things that I could do that problem shouldn't happen? And that's basically how we grow up. We mature. We take one conclusion and we say, it's not really working out for me. Let me try to work it out in a way that I will be able to work through, to live with that. And there are some things that are easier, like this one that we just said, which happens automatically. A little kid understands things as he grows up, and he starts letting go of the little things that really kept him uptight. But then there are certain conclusions and certain reactions that people have reached throughout their life that are still guiding them today. the way they react to certain things, with anger, sadness, or even happiness. You could have something that you were so excited to have when you were younger, like this amazing candy, and now you're 40 years old and you find it, and you're like, wow, that candy, you just feel like you're a kid again. The second you put it into your mouth, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't, my taste buds don't even work as well, and I can't stomach this red dye 5, But either way, we have certain reactions embedded within us, and they will come up whenever they're called upon. And some people want to work on some, and if a person wants to work on something, why do they want to work on that thing? What's going on in their mind? Why are they calling up a therapist, or saying, or speaking to a friend, or opening up to someone about this certain problem? The only reason they're doing it is because it's holding them back. They're noticing it on their own, or other people have made them notice it. But now, once they know that they have this weakness or this problem, they're going to want to take care of it. They're going to want to deal with it the best way possible. So the will to change is there for everyone. Everyone wants to be the best. So the question is, are you ready to admit that you have this issue? Do you still think of yourself as the greatest? Do you still think that I am the best singer, musician, bus driver, truck driver, airline pilot, and chef, and every other thing? Like, no, you have to start letting go and saying, you know what, I'm good at these few things, and I prioritize on this one, and here are my weaknesses. I'm weak in those areas, and I'm going to prioritize on one. Just like when you want to become successful, you can't be all over. You need to focus in and zone in and do everything that's needed of you in this particular area. And all the rest of the things that you're good at could be left as hobbies, could be made as times of vacation. You go and you say, when I have the ability, I'll go out and do more of that. I'll be able to go and spread more of my abilities. But the same things with weaknesses. We can't just be lost in the image that I have so many things that are that are bothering me, that are keeping me down. You look at it and you're like, you know what? I have so many weaknesses. I'm going to take one of them and I'm going to focus in. I'm going to zone in and do whatever I can to make this work. And since you're hypnotized and you want to do this work, you'll be able to find the reasoning behind why did this actually start in the first place? Why was this problem part of me? Why can't I let go of it for so many years? And you go through the narrative of the mind, and the mind tells you a story. It goes through your life, and every story that you went through, which is no longer your reality, that entire story that you went through in the past, it was the reality at the time that it happened. But now it's just a story, and that story shaped you until now. How could we take that story so it could shape you into a better person in the future? And those stories are going to come up. Those are unresolved stories that need to be resolved. We should come out with a proper lesson at the end of it. And that's the idea of hypnosis. We go in deep into the mind and uncover the roots to the reactions that we have. There's so much more to talk about. There's so many more modalities that we could discuss how to get into these conversations. Like if you want to see your thoughts, we could tell you, okay, close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, follow the words of my mouth as they travel through me into your ears, and relax. And now we'll take you through the narrative of your mind. You have this emotion that you're dealing with. How old do you feel with this emotion? And you take it, and you're like, wow, I feel pretty young. How young do you feel? Oh, you're 7? What is it at 7? Oh, and you start seeing things around you, and you start talking about the story. Now, once you talk about the story, whatever happened back then, it could really hurt you. It could be like, I'm not really sure what I'm looking at. It could be any of these. Like, every person is different. But once you get into this place, you find yourself reliving that story, or rethinking it, seeing it from a clearer point of view, and reaching a mature conclusion that will lead you saying, you know what, I was 7 at that time, and this is how I understood the story, and this is why I started reacting this way, but from now on I'm going to change that. And we could take you into those memories through different modalities. Instead of just taking you into the breathing part, I could go and create an entire outside story which is a muscle to everything that you are, which is a metaphor to everything that you're doing. Meaning, instead of seeing your grandmother sitting at the table and you coming into the door, we could create like, let's go talk to that emotion. You're dealing with the emotion of sadness. Let's go talk to that emotion. And we go and we meet a person within you, a person inside of your body that actually represents the emotion of sadness. And we could go through that, like what's that person saying to you, and what's something that you want to tell this sadness. Do you want to tell it to go away, or do you want to ask it what's hurting? And we learn how to accept the parts of us and say, hey, I see that you're a part of me. There's no way I'm getting rid of you. How can I make that you shouldn't be so sad all the time? What's holding you back? And from there we could find ourselves in the stories of our life, and all the metaphors and analogies and actual memories that we went through that paved the path that we are on right now. And what can we learn? What conclusions can we make right now in order for us to be able to continue as the best version of ourselves? Alright, this is a whole bunch, a lot of information. I hope you learned something, got you thinking a little bit, and hopefully we'll be going into self-hypnosis. But guess what? This conversation you just had, if you listen to it intently, you were probably pulled into it. You have to think in order to listen. So re-listen and re-listen. You'll see that on its own is basically self-hypnosis. You just let yourself drift away, but you're doing it through me over here on the camera. But you could do that on your own. You could close yourself and say, everything goes aside right now. I'm relaxing and I'm going in and I'm going to deal with a certain issue, with a certain feeling, and I'm going to go through it, and whatever comes up, I'm going to say, okay, that's my work that I gotta do. Somebody's dealing with parnasa, and he says, and when he closes his eyes, the first thing that comes up is that he's, I'm wasting too much time on my phone, or I'm spending my money in the wrong places, or I'm not honest with my money, or whatever thoughts come into his mind. At that point, he's like, okay, this thing that just came up, that's the thing I gotta deal with. And once you start dealing with that, you start making a point and making yourself better in that area. Your finances start becoming more secure. You start finding value in every single day, and eventually your entire world becomes surrounded by this beautiful light that you are creating for yourself. All right, have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining. I'll see you next time.